What's up guys? So in my last video I posted a behind the scenes of me shooting a bottle of Lucky Jack Cold Brew, and I told you guys I'd be posting an editing breakdown of how I composite and edit these photos using Photoshop and Lightroom. If you guys haven't checked out that first video yet, I definitely recommend it, as it'll help you understand how I captured these images and why I'm editing them this way. If you guys want to follow directly along, you can find a link to all the raw files in the description below. I'll go ahead and give you guys a minute to do that. Okay, so now if you guys decide to download those files, let's go ahead and get started. All my edits start in Lightroom. This is where I like to add in any color corrections and make sure my exposure looks good. The first thing I like to do is add an S-curve by dragging down the blacks and raising the highlights slightly. This will establish a nice base layer for us and will add a little bit of contrast to our photo. From there, we're going to adjust the shadows and the highlights to really make those condensation droplets pop. And then I like to add a little bit of contrast and adjust my blacks, making sure not to crush out the blacks too much. And from there, I pretty much go back and forth between the sliders until I get the look I want to achieve, making sure that I retain as much information in the bottle in the foreground while keeping my background as black as possible. Once you got your basic color corrections laid out, what I like to do is copy these settings and paste them onto each image that I'm going to use for this composite. You can do this by right-clicking, going down to settings and scrolling down to copy settings, or you can use the shortcuts, which is Command-C on Mac or Command-Shift-C on PC. Then you're going to paste these settings onto each image basically the same way as before, but instead of selecting copy, you're going to go ahead and select paste. Or if you want to use a shortcut, you can use Command and Control-Shift-V to paste those settings. I usually continue to do this to each image that will be used in my composite, so that once they're all combined, they'll blend together seamlessly. Once you're done with that, it's time to start compositing. We're going to select all the images we want to composite by holding down the Shift key and clicking on the first image, and then selecting the last image you want to use to composite. This will highlight all the images we want to use in our edit. From there, we're going to right click and go to Edit, and then Open as Layers in Photoshop. This will launch Photoshop and automatically import all of our images into one document. Once Photoshop is done opening all our images, I usually like to see what order they're in and then adjust them to make my composite easier. Like this layer right here is the exposure highlighting the left side of the bottle to help the text pop. I want that image to sit on top so that we can use those elements of that label and not disrupt any other parts of our image. We can start this edit by cutting out the label by using the pen tool, which can easily become one of your best friends in Photoshop. All you need to do is click to drop an anchor point and hold down and drag to adjust your anchors. If you need to adjust the position of one of your handles, all you need to do is hold down the Alt key, then adjust your handle accordingly. I'm going to quickly cut this label out and not worry too much about tracing around each of those droplets of water, because it won't matter really in the final edit because it was shot on a nice black background. Once you've finished cutting out your label and close your path, you go in there and make any fine-tuned adjustments using the direct selection tool. Once you're at a comfortable spot, you can go ahead and right click and scroll down to make a selection and then click OK. This will add some nice marching ants around your cut, then all you need to do is go to the bottom of your layers panel and add a layer mask. And since this label is black, it's going to make this edit a little bit easier for us. I'm going to change the blend mode to screen, then adjust the layer to perfectly align with the layer underneath by tapping the arrow keys with the move tool selected. Now that our images are aligned, let's go ahead and see how big of an impact this made to our image. If you flip on and off this layer, you can see how the text on the left side of the bottle pops so much nicer now that we've added this layer on top. From here, I want to add in more of that right side rim light, as well as that pull tab turned out to the side. So we're going to drag that layer right underneath our label layer that we just worked on. And as you can see, it looks super wonky, but don't worry about that because we're just going to be using the top right half of the bottle. You can start by adding a layer mask to this layer and then inverting it to black. This will hide everything on your layer, making it much easier for you to work. We're just going to take a soft brush and paint white onto the layer mask to the section that we want to show. All I'm really looking for here is the bottle turned out to its side with the pull tab and the rim light on the right side of the bottle. Feeling pretty happy with where this is at, so let's go ahead and move on to the next step. Just looking at the image now, I'm pretty happy with the overall detail captured in it. I just don't like that spot on the left side that's appearing pure black. So I'm going to go in there and duplicate that layer by holding down the Alt or Option key and dragging it within my layers panel. Then I'll fill this layer mask with black so that I can go back in there with a white brush to paint back in some detail. Now if I take a step back and look at my image, it's looking pretty solid. We just need to fix the left side of the image where my softbox cuts in. I probably could have avoided this issue altogether during the shoot, but I wanted to make sure that the highlight on the left side maintained a certain thickness. So I'm going to get rid of that by adding a new layer on top of my whole project over in the Layers panel. Then I'm just going to sample a section of my background and paint in the rest of the black that's missing. And once we get towards the bottom of the photo, the rope's going to be a little bit tough to cut around. So what I'm going to do is blow my brush up nice and large and paint that section in and just fade it out. We could even add a layer mask to help fine tune things even more. Now we're pretty much in the home stretch of this edit. The small section that we just painted in didn't blend in too seamlessly, so we need to even that out. I like to do this by adding a levels adjustment layer and adjusting my blacks and mids until the background looks nice and solid. I pretty much do this with all my edits that have solid black backgrounds. It helps hide any imperfections and really clean things up. Once you've finished all your compositing, go ahead and hit save, and then jump back into Lightroom where your final edit will appear. I like to wrap up most of my posts here by cropping them into a 1x1 post for social media. In some cases, I like to add a small vignette to some of my images to help really draw focus to the subject. And if you want, you can go in using Lightroom's brush tool to adjust the exposure of certain sections of your image. Like the coffee beans in this photo are kind of getting lost at the moment. So you can just go in and paint over the section and then adjust your exposure or shadows accordingly to really polish off your photo. So that's how I like to edit composite photos like these. I hope you guys found this video helpful and followed along. I'd absolutely love to see your edits, so please send those over my way. You can find links to my Instagram below. And if you still haven't watched the behind the scenes from when this bottle was shot, please make sure to go give that a watch. It will most likely answer any other questions that you might have on the images used to composite this photo. Just a quick studio update. I've been working pretty hard on improving my space, and it's already started to drastically change since my last studio video. So be on the lookout for another studio update here very soon. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.